Good afternoon, my name is Jeremy Prater, and we've been asked quite a bit about doing some demonstrations for how to start a garden. One of the basic ones is how to get a good raised bed for your garden. Raised beds are very handy for doing helping keep the weeds out of your garden, making it easier to work with the plants you've got in your garden. It just gets things elevated and up off the ground, especially if you're in areas that are prone to a lot of water and runoff, or low-lying areas that are going to collect a lot of water during rainstorms. Raised beds are a good idea. And if you're in an urban environment and you're trying to do some landscaping with your raised beds, they look nice and clean and neat for folks. The raised bed we'll be building today is a 4-foot by 8-foot box, so it's 4 feet wide, 8 feet long, and it'll be 1 foot deep. You can go less than that, 6 inches, or whatever the dimension of the material you're using is. Most folks prefer a full foot in depth. I don't like to go any higher than that because that requires a lot more soil to be brought in. This will require 32 square feet of soil, or 32 cubic feet of soil brought in, excuse me. So it's a little bit over a yard. It's about a yard and a piece if you're having to call to bring it in. So what we'll be using today, we're using red cedar from Arkansas. This is just a local cedar that's readily available. It's from our local sawmill. But I got 1 inch by 6 inch boards that are 8 feet long. They cut them long as logs, and so you get them long, so we'll have to trim those down. And also I'm using cedar 2x4 material. You can see they've done a really nice job of having that as pretty dimensional. These will be used in the corners to attach all of our planks to when we're ready for final assembly. I like cedar. Again, it's a local material. And it's supporting a local business. On top of that, it's really weather resistant. Folks have been using cedar posts for fence posts for decades and decades around here, probably over a century, and a lot of those posts will last 30-40 years in the ground. So I'm really confident that this is as good as treated, and that you don't have to worry about any kind of, what it is that they're treating the wood with. So that's what we're using for lumber. We'll go through all the steps for squaring it up and putting it together. Tool-wise, cedar, one of the drawbacks to cedar is it's a nice softwood, so it's easier to work with, but it does have a tendency to split, so we'll be drilling pilot holes with a 1/8 inch drill bit. You can use a hand drill if that's what you've got. You can use power tools if that's what you've got. All of this can be done with hand tools if that's what you have. Something to drive the bits with, screwdriver, impact wrench is what I prefer for speed. You'll need a tape measure. You'll also need a saw of some sort. So I've got a power saw here, but I'll also demonstrate how to use a hand saw. These types of saws are really nice. They've got a really precise fine cut and then a pretty aggressive rip cut there. So those are the saws we'll be using. Tape measure for sure. You're going to need a triangle or some way to square up the boards. So we'll talk about this when we get into it. We're going to have to make nice 90-degree cuts. So this is a handy tool. It also is useful for the power saw. Pencil to mark your cuts with that I dropped on the ground. As far as protection goes, definitely want some gloves regardless if you're using a power saw or the hand saw. Wood's got splinters on it if nothing else, and that's irritating. Power saws will definitely cause problems. And even a hand saw, generally speaking, you'll mark your line, and you're going to put a thumb or a finger up next to that line to help start your saw cut. So you'll still want to have some protection there. Using the skill saw in particular, I like to have hearing protection on, and then of course eyeballs. Nobody wants to go to the doctor right now with a splinter in the eyeball, so pretty much I'm going to be using safety glasses for all of this. Okay, I'm back with a hat more appropriate for hearing protection. So basically we're going to start off, like I say, we got rough cut lumber. I don't know if you can tell, but that's at a pretty wicked non-90 degree angle. So we're just going to find a reference point, just put that on there, grab our pencil, and we're basically going to do this for this whole stack of lumber. We need to make sure that all the ends are cut, and the way I like to do it when I'm in production mode like this is I'll just mark all of these boards on one end and get them all marked, and then use this. Once I've got a clean 90-degree cut here, I can measure out my 8-foot distance, make a mark on the far end, and have that cut. Just to prove the point that hand saws work fine, So I've got my reference mark right here. I'm going to just cut the line. Now I'm not going to use the square to run my line. I'm going to have to just eyeball this, but we're going slow enough it shouldn't matter. I'm going to put my thumb right up against where I want the saw to be, just to get us a good start. This may look different if you're used to a different, the European style saw that a lot of us grew up with. This is just a Japanese style saw. So I'm just going to follow my line, get over here where I'm stable. I'm just going to follow my line. You can see I'm not working too hard here. There we go. Do a bunch of those and you've got a box made. From this point on, I'm going to use the power saw just because it's more efficient for what I'm trying to get done today. I've got a bunch of these to finish up. Okay, we're all set. We've already cut this one, so we're good to go on that one for the moment. We're just going to go ahead and cut this whole row here because we're going to square up all the other ones on the other side after we got our reference point made. So I just put this up. I really don't, I'm assuming all these are 8 foot, so I'm not going to cut off too much here, just enough to square it off. Make sure I got a good, nice, straight reference point. So I get all the marking done. Still use your triangle to help with your guideline. I'll just eyeball that, get it mostly close. And on this time, since we're at the edge of the board, you don't have anything to put your triangle on it up against the fence, just put it on the other side. So double check, always measure twice and cut once. There it is. That's one. So that's half the boards, or 2/3 of the boards we're going to use, and some only takes 6 8-foot boards. So now I can run my tape down to 8 feet, make a mark, and I'm going to measure everything on this side. Again, it just saves a little bit of time and moving around. We're going to come up to that, score our lines. That'll be where we cut. So, there's our square up there. Some of these boards are longer than others, so lots of times you'll have more room on rough cut lumber to work than what I've got right here. So we can start to cut right where I want to be. Now, just to demonstrate, if you're left-handed, this triangle just comes up and over to the other side, same process. You're just going to use your left hand, and since I already started the cut, I'm already there. Boom, right on our line. Once you've got all your boards 8 feet long, everybody's got square ends on them, what you're going to do with two boards is you're going to come in and you're going to make 4 foot, you're going to cut them into 4-foot lengths. So you've got your nice square ends on both sides. You're going to find 48 inches or 4 feet. Make your mark. Get that tape out of the way. And I do this, you know, some folks that are good carpenters, they can run their saw right off of this. There are days when I can do that, and there are days when I cannot. So I've got my triangle down as my guide up for my fence. Got my saw lined up where I want to cut. And this will be a little bit better demonstration of how this triangle works. So you can see if I was in a hurry, hot and cranky and dehydrated, it'd be pretty easy. It's easy to get your thumb out of the way, but it might not occur to you to think about this finger, especially since it's under the board. This way, everything's out of the way and safe. I know I'm plumb good. So good, firm grip on the square so it doesn't wander around. Here we go. I just use the saw to tip it up like that. Now we're ready to start assembling our pieces. 4 of the 4-footers, 4 of the 8-footers. Again, in a simple situation like this where you're just working off sawhorses, what I've done is I've got 2 boards to kind of work off of as a table. Take my 2x4 block that's going to be the end. You've got to attach these, and so one way to do it would be to run screws from the 2x4 piece into the 1x boards. That'd be fine. Just the majority of, like, it's just not as strong. I'm going to attach my long boards into this 2x4. And so what I do is a simple setup. I know I'm going to put one on each end. Doesn't have to be perfect for right now. And I get some piece of scrap that's the same dimension. I put it in the middle to support everything. So first board up. Get my stuff out of the way. Being organized as much as you can helps quite a lot. So now I've got my pieces where I can just, once I get everything lined up, now when I take my drill, I can just drill in. I'm going to put 2 screws per board, 4 screws per side. I can just get everything in there. So I get everything lined up. Put my ears back on because I'm going to be using both tools. So, and you can kind of, if you've got gaps down here, you can sort of squeeze everything together. Sometimes, like you can see right here, I squeeze that end and caused a big curve out here. You can play with the order of this, or you can, cedar's flexible enough, you can actually attach one end and then pull the boards together and close up that hole. So, I'm just going to put one pilot hole in. I'm going to put a screw in just to hold things where they're supposed to be. I'm actually going to do that to both of these. Get everything lined up, and then we can pull that gap out of there. Okay, so this end's nice and tidy. We got this big crack down here to deal with. Let me turn this around so you can see what we're working with. And you can also see that is nice and tightly put together. So I've got to swap out here. If I wasn't on camera doing this, I wouldn't bother with turning things around, but it is what it is. There we go. Okay, so we got this nice big gap. We'll line one board up, get it nice and pretty, square and flush. Now on this one, since we're trying to close this gap, I need this board up here to be nice and firm. One or the other, it doesn't matter. But we're going to go ahead and put this one in first. Same deal as before. If you're working with a partner, one of you can pilot the holes and the other one can run the impact or run the screws in. That makes it go faster. This lumber, because it is rough cut lumber from a mill rather than finished plain lumber that you might find at a hardware store, is not predictable enough to just drill all the holes from one piece to the for the whole project and then put screws in. It's a little bit more custom than that. Okay, so what I've got to do now is I've got to pull this gap out. So I am going to drill a small hole, or shallow rather is the better word, just through the plank. And that's just going to help us not split this top board. 2x4 I don't bother with so much. Alright, maybe you can see what I'm doing better now. And I'm actually going to start this screw just a little bit. So once I get to where I'm going, I don't have to fool around. So I'm just pulling this into my leg as close as I can. You can use a ratchet strap if you needed to, or this is where a buddy comes in. Now the gap's gone. I will say, if you let your lumber, this kind of lumber, sit outside for any length of time, it will wander around on you and get all kinds of warped. Okay, one side of our bed is done. So we'll do this one more time, and then we'll have the two long sides, and I'll show you how to put it together. Where we need mood music. So again, that is 4 feet wide, 8 feet long, and 1 foot deep. Show you some details. See how we attach this 2x4 when we attach it to our long sides. Makes a great place to put in your screws for your inboards.